Property Graduate is the show for aspiring property developers and investors to win a life-changing opportunity that money can't buy. The prize is twofold: forming a property company with renowned property guru John Howard and owning 50% of the shares. John is one of the most experienced property developers and investors in the UK today. With almost 4 decades experience in the industry, he's been there and done that, having purchased and sold around 4,000 homes, apartments and developments. This savvy businessman is putting £1 million of his own money into the new company so the winner can buy and develop a property. With a 50% stake in it, they'll automatically receive a 50% share of the profit and potentially have John as a business partner for life. You're watching Property Graduate. Welcome to the final episode of Property Graduate. In the first episode, we saw 20 hopefuls being interviewed, hoping they could convince John that they have what it takes to become his property graduate. The contestants came from far and wide and had varying levels of experience in property, but only 10 could go through to the second round, called the challenge. From there, they were whittled down to 3 after completing a tough 1-hour appraisal test. In this episode, the final 3 contestants, Tristan, Emma and Neil, have been asked by John to present a potential property deal that is live and available to purchase to invest in. The panel will pick the person who they think has performed the best across the whole competition. There can only be one Property Graduate 2022.
So here we are.
The final.
20 down to 10, down to 3.
Yeah.
And today, down to 1. There's the award.
Anybody could take it. Whoever brings their A game today,
Yeah.
they've all got an equal chance.
I mean, the last round was very disappointing.
But this round, the 3 of them are bringing their own deals.
They
so
are.
they should be well researched, carefully selected,
Yeah.
and they should have all the information and be able to answer all the questions we give them.
They should know this inside and out.
Yeah.
Literally.
Absolutely no excuses today for anything. Nothing at all. I thought Emma did well in the first round. I wasn't so convinced in the second round. I don't think either of you were, but because she did so well in the first round, I think we took the view, didn't we really, that she was, as I said at the time, you're lucky to get through to the final on what you've just done.
Yeah.
But we're looking at the previous round and thinking, actually, this lady's, got something about her.
I mean, she has a lot of self-confidence, a lot of ambition, self-belief. It's whether that can actually materialise into profitability for you.
First up is Emma Fielding.
Emma,
Hi, hello.
hello, how are you?
I'm good, Good to be
Good.
here.
Excellent. Well, we're delighted that you got to the final.
Thank you.
Let's see what you've got.
This deal is the Crofton Arms in Doncaster Road in Wakefield, of all places. So there's been a couple of reasons why I picked this deal, but I'll go into them later. I thought I'll just start with kind of the key points first.
Please do. Yeah.
So at the minute, the property is actually currently on the market at 595,000. It actually has been reduced from offers in the region of 800, which was in June last year, and then it was reduced at 650 August last year. So there has been a steady drop in price over the period of time.
Okay.
The land itself is 0.45 acres, which provides an excellent residential development opportunity for the actual land itself.
Yep.
The land is actually 3 miles from Wakefield city centre, in a very popular residential suburb of Wakefield, an area called Crofton, which I actually know quite well. And also it has an additional arable land towards the back of the pub development, which is actually included in the purchase price, which again was another opportunity that I quite liked about this. The actual arable land itself is around 1.1 acres currently. So a little bit of background to do with the pub. So the pub was actually built round about in the 1960s in total.
Not being rude, Emma, can I stop you there? Do we need to know about the pub if you're going to knock it down?
True, but I
Is
think
it of
it's
any
quite important
interest?
to know a little bit of background, and I'll
Is
get
it any
onto the
interest
owners
to
as
us?
well.
Do we care? It's going to be knocked down, isn't it?
Potentially, yes.
Well, let's move on then,
potentially.
please, to something a bit more interesting.
Okay, that's fine. But to do with the owners, so the current owners have actually owned it since December 2013.
With all due respect, who cares? Emma, it's been up for sale for a year and a half, 2 years. It's obviously
It was overpriced.
way
yeah,
overpriced.
800, absolutely.
Way overpriced.
And even the agent actually admits that it was put up overpriced at
Well,
that
the agent
particular
shouldn't
time.
put it on the market if it's overpriced. He's
No.
just wasting.
No.
He or she has been wasting their time for 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, let's carry on. Yeah.
So the actual development itself, so I split it into kind of two options. So the first option would be to gain planning permission on the pub land for 4 pairs of 3-bed semi-detached properties, which would be 8 houses in total.
Yep.
And to sell on that land with outline planning permission to a local developer. That would be around a GDV of 700,000. Or option 2 is to actually develop the land again with 4 pairs of semi-detached properties, 8 houses, and that would be a GDV of 1.88 million. And that's the land to do with the pub development is actually brownfield as well. And actually a conversation with my architect, it would be relatively straightforward to actually get planning permission on that land, as there is a row of semi-detached properties at the side and there's a row of terrace houses at the other side.
Have you had a planning consultant confirm that in writing to you?
No, not as of yet. I actually went to go view this on Thursday, so it's just been a bit of a matter of time of getting the right conversations in place so far.
Yep.
But that would actually be my next step
Yep.
into going through the planning consultant route. The next phase would actually be the arable land. So at the minute, the arable land is actually green belt land of 1.1 acres. Potentially, I would like to get planning permission on that for 14 houses for social housing / affordable housing, going down that route. Yes, it is obviously more difficult to get planning on green belt land, of course.
Can I stop you there? Do you know how hard it is to get planning on greenbelt land?
Very, very tough, yes.
Almost impossible
Yes.
in my view.
However, Wakefield Council are offloading considerable amounts of green belt land and have been for the last couple of years and continue to do so because there is actually a demand for social housing in
Are
the
they
area.
releasing?
And that goes into
Are
the
they
presentation.
releasing greenbelt land for housing?
Yes, they are, actively.
And you know of kind of sites nearby or in the same
Vicinity. Yeah,
vicinity
there
with
is,
the
yes.
same council?
So the local housing...
incredibly
Where,
hard to
where,
do.
let me finish the question. Where planning has been given.
Yes.
Okay.
So to do with the local housing provider, Wakefield District Housing, they're basically the social housing provider in Wakefield, and they're actively working with Wakefield Council and local construction companies to develop on greenfield lands.
Emma, if it's greenbelt, it has to go through the government.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
order to get it lifted, and it can take an awful long time.
And I know for sure it's not as quick as greenfield by no
means. It's a big
means.
challenge, but if you own the land, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, I accept
to
the
be
fact
quite
that-
honest, one of the reasons why I quite like this was that the actual arable land itself wasn't an additional cost at all. It's kind of that, cherry on the cake type of thing.
Well,
if
you
you get
think
it.
though with the price that they started at, that they had tried to get a premium for
Yeah,
that, but
they
obviously
did, yeah.
nobody bit that
Yeah,
cherry. So.
and actually from the conversation that I had with the owners on Wednesday, they're actually very much willing to negotiate on the 595.
I'm sure they are. Look
They
at that.
actually said to me, it's yours at 550.
That's good of them.
Which is good news. They are motivated and they do want to get out of it relatively quite quickly.
And can I just confirm that rear acreage is renting for £650
Yes.
a month?
Yes, it is. Just to the local farmer, and he's basically dealing with obviously maintaining that. The owner actually did express if you don't maintain it, the council will actually get onto your back about that because there is actually houses towards the other side of that field.
There's a lease in place.
Not that I know of in total.
It's not within the Agricultural Act or anything like that.
I've not actually personally looked into it,
Okay.
but again, that would be my next step.
Yeah, okay, fair
just
enough.
from
Yeah,
going
okay.
to the
Yeah,
next
that's
steps of
fair
that.
enough, yeah.
I'll go into kind of the GDV and the financials of kind of the options.
Yeah.
So kind of option 1, I've looked at a GDV of 700,000 when planning is actually approved for the 8 houses. So that's the 4 semis. That's based on obviously what is selling out there at the minute and the actual GDV of the land, doing the third of a third of a third method. So for the land, the build and the profit as well.
A third, you're about 10 years behind the times.
Okay.
Emma, all right? Because the build costs the build costs,
Yeah.
the material costs are the same in Wakefield as they are in London. Yeah. So what you find at the moment, you could probably barely pay, in my view, more than at the most 25% of the end value.
Okay. Yeah.
For the site, in my view. Now, you might have someone disagree, and the labour for building houses, I appreciate in somewhere like Wakefield's cheaper than some
Yeah.
of the places down south. However, most developments are 50-50, 50% labour, 50% materials.
Yeah.
So I personally think 25% is more near the mark of the
Okay.
end value,
Yeah.
not a third. But
Okay.
carry on, please.
Okay. To do with kind of actually gaining planning and the total cost, including interest as well, would be around 600,000, and then we'll sell that for about 700,000. So around a £99,000 profit, which would leave an ROI of 16%. That's just purely on gaining planning for the 8 houses, and then obviously selling on the land from there.
Okay.
That's option 1. Option 2 is that, again, we gain the planning for the 8 houses, but we actually develop those 8 houses and we sell them on. So I really think that's where kind of the meat is in this deal. But however, it depends on the quick turnaround that you require. So I quite like that.
Well, we're
obviously-
going to be partners, Emma, so
Yeah.
between us we'll agree it.
Yeah, exactly.
What we do.
Exactly. To be honest, I quite like developing, but I know that's not my area of expertise. So I'd be probably leaning on you a little bit more on that one, John. But
problem.
I quite like that element to
Okay.
it. So the GDV of that would be about 1.88 million, and that is based on a selling price of 235,000 for the 8 houses. I've actually costed that up as well. So the price per square metre would be based on £1,000 per square metre. I did actually have a conversation with my builder about this, and he said on average to build just one pair of semis would be anything from £750 a square metre to £1,200 a square metre. So I took an average of around £1,000 per square metre with a contingency of 5% in that. He did say the 1,200
Gonna
would
need
be
more
a
than 5%.
Yeah,
would be a
5% seems light.
Yeah, it probably does seem a little bit light when I kind of look back and refer, maybe probably 10% on that one. The actual profit would be around 342,000, given an ROI of 22% on that.
Thank you, Emma. Fiona.
I'm curious, you've glossed over the actual stage of getting planning on this scheme. This is an operating, running business with hotel rooms and the restaurant.
Yeah.
Is it the only sort of hotel rooms in that village? My experience is the planners don't like to lose hotel rooms.
They're not really classed as hotel rooms as such, I would say. It's more kind of like bed sits, really. They're not actively promoting it as that at all. It's just basically a place where contractors stay in the week. They're only charging £250 a month. They're in pretty tire condition, to be quite honest. It's not a building that I would like to buy and refurb that building, because it would simply cost too much. And I think, the look of it as well isn't the most fantastic looking.
Right, but it is an amenity in that area.
There is others in the area, very close by to the city centre as well, that are kind of doing hotels or Airbnb, things like that. If we kind of look at kind of the arable land next, so I said with all the costs, including the planning, the legals, etc., that cost would be about 87,000 with interest. And again, if we use the third method, sorry, John, on that one, that would be around 930,000 sold with planning. I don't actually intend to develop that land, but again, that probably would be a separate conversation.
Of course, Emma, that's a great profit, because the land is standing you in basically nothing.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is if you're going to sell it to a social housing operator like housing association, they're likely to pay you a lot less.
Yeah,
than open
possibly.
market.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much juice in developing out the pub. We've got return on cost of 22%, and that's if your costs are right. At £1,000 a metre for new build, and as we've established, you'll need more than 5% contingency. So without the land, to me, that deal doesn't work.
I think you made a very good point, Fiona. Commercial to residential, there's no guarantee that a local authority will allow it to go to residential on the basis that they might want you to market it for another year and all that silly business.
Yeah,
won't they?
I own several pubs, so I'm actually quite kind of familiar with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You'll need to know, have you talked to them about how they're actually doing? Because you'll need to show that it's not viable in its current method.
So in terms of actual trade, they've lost significant trade since COVID. They're actually not opening the restaurant as frequently as what it was.
No.
Their main business is actually coming from Uber Eats and Deliveroo, and they take a 20% cut. So again, that's another reason why they want out, because it's just not as profitable as what it was a couple of years ago, pre-COVID.
Firstly, I think your build costs are too low.
Okay.
I know it's Wakefield, and actually, good news for you is I've done a deal in Wakefield in the past.
Oh, brilliant.
And I think you are optimistic in the amount of money you think you can sell this to for a builder for two reasons. One, because your build costs are too low, and in any case, a third is 10 years old now, and it's more like 25% in my view. All that really means is that it isn't worth 500,000.
Those offers around the 400, 450, it makes it work feasibly.
That's why they've been getting those offers.
Exactly.
With all due respect, I don't think it
Exactly.
works at 400,000.
Around that figure, I would say.
You would think so, do you?
Possibly.
I think we could. Let's see what Helen has to say about that. she's the expert with the figures. Helen?
Yeah, I'm with John on that. And I think the market is speaking. The market has offered 400, 450. So I think to be above that, you need to have another trick up your sleeve, and I don't know what that would be unless you are 110% certain about that planning, which you just can never be, particularly given green belt.
But I think it's those conversations to have now, and any offer would be subject to planning anyway. So we're not.
So
losing.
you're buying this subject to planning?
Potentially,
Well, you should have said that in the first place, to be honest with you.
It would always be subject to planning
I mean,
for something like this.
I personally would have I would already have a buyer lined up for it, subject to planning, and let them do the planning.
How many deals did you look through to come up with this one?
So given kind of, 4 or 5 days, I think, from the last round, probably about 70, maybe 80. But saying that, I know this has been on the market for a while, so this was always in the back of my head. I was looking at, obviously, all over, not just in Yorkshire, not just kind of the north, let's say, but I wanted to come with something that I was pretty confident in the area,
and the
considering
area.
from, the last round. So, I think
the one thing I would say, Emma, is that you haven't had 7 days to find a deal. You should have been looking at deals like this for the last 3 months, knowing you're coming on the show, in my view.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing kind of in the background.
And this is the best one you can come up with.
I do like this one. The others sometimes just didn't tick the boxes in terms of they're asking too much initially, or there was no planning there. I know there's no planning there with this one, but I feel like it is a potential to get planning.
And it can be bought
pub
subject
site.
to planning, you think?
Yes. The owners are actually actively seeking that, if that's the route that we want to go down. And I did say that the offer may be subject to planning.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, very thorough,
Thank you.
well researched.
Yeah, good pack.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I do have some concerns on the numbers, and as I say, it all rests on that kind of the bit at the back, doesn't it? So,
Emma, thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll see you later.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Pleasure.
opportunity. Thank you.
Next to pitch his deal is Tristan Gordon.
Tristan, welcome back. Final in the last 3. How'd you feel?
Actually, pretty nervous, because I think at the end of the last one, I forgot the point that I was shaking.
Did you? Good. I'm glad we made you shake. That's excellent news. That pleases me a little bit. Yeah.
I think I brought a deal to the table that's pretty interesting.
Okay, off you go.
Here we've got a selection of farm buildings just out at Bramerton, which is within my 15-minute radius of Norwich, not too far away from the city centre. The property, the reason I found it is I usually like finding stuff that people don't look at or don't notice. And the reason I flagged this one up was it was really poorly listed on Rightmove. So it's actually only listed as one property at £35,000, which if you actually look at the rest of the site, there's far more to it than that.
Yeah.
So Found it from that side of things. I sat there and looked at it and thought, actually, this could be a great little opportunity using some permitted development rights to create something that's absolutely fabulous, not far from Norwich, so it's quite easily for people to want to commute into. With it being, it's actually, I did a little video and walked around the place, but the main barn is actually currently being used for agricultural purposes. They've got anything from harvesters, tractors and stuff in there, so you can see that it's been going out and about. And then in the piggery, at the moment, it's they've got a little bit of stuff that's been stored in there, but it hasn't really been used in the last few years. So anyway, so I thought they were quite interesting projects to use, and they're absolutely vast in size, as you would have seen from my analysis. And I sat there and thought, well, if we look at this slightly different to being just one barn, but instead we split down one of the barns into 4 units, we can actually end up with some really beautiful properties that have got views right across farm fields and whatever else that are pretty desirable. So
there's nothing beautiful about farm buildings under the PD scheme.
Yeah.
Because the council, the rules are that they have to continue to look like farm buildings.
Yeah.
So it is difficult, and you won't be allowed to make them look too beautiful.
Yeah.
They will look similar to what they are now.
Yeah.
Bizarrely, but in a more modern way.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I tried including in the pack a couple of ideas of other properties that I've found or conversions. I looked at those and thought, actually, these kind of finishes aren't too dissimilar to what these properties could look like at the end.
Well, carry on.
So I did a bit more digging into the analysis of people who live around in the area and what kind of properties would sell in there.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, you've got mainly owner-occupiers in the area, and the kind of the size of the properties and the people that are living in there tend to want larger properties. And you can see that I've given you sold analysis from
you've given us everything from nothing to 1.8 million in property sales.
So when it came down to it and looking through my analysis, you'll notice I haven't included community infrastructure liability. And that's where I've looked at the existing buildings being in current use. So where I've spoken to and I realise this is in South Norfolk, but South Norfolk is now part of Broadlands Authority. I've spoken to Broadlands Authority before. They've said as long as a property's been in its current use in the last 3 years,
absolutely.
then we won't charge you CIL.
Absolutely right. People get confused by the CIL, the Community Infrastructure Levy. The rules are that if it's been occupied for the last 3 years and you're not adding any more square footage or square metres to it, then there is no CIL.
Yeah.
Where people get it wrong is that if it's been empty for more than 3 years, you have got CIL.
Yeah.
And that can be a lot of money. So that's a very good point you make.
When you're looking to use the permitted development or the prior approval to get through, you're allowed, I believe, up to 865 metres squared in total on a development. It usually breaks down, I've written in there how many smaller and how many larger barns can be included in that. But the one thing usually on your, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's based on the actual floor space. So where this property, the main one, has got a ceiling height in the middle, pinged it from the floor at 6.3 metres, then you could actually put a mezzanine level into it, so then actually double up on the space. And it might also actually be, you don't use all of that space, instead you have open areas where you can look down and, or have double heights and stairs to make it a little bit more luxurious.
The buildings themselves, you've got a conversion figure in of £160 a square foot.
The amount that I've allowed is effectively in Norfolk, from what I understand, is about the new build cost. Because I looked at it and thought the actual existing structures are there. They aren't going to be able to, whilst you can argue this is as it stands, it's suitable for its current use, they are going to need a substantial amount of work to be able to turn them into actual homes.
I think that's a complete understatement. When you find with barns, any type of barn really, because you're unravelling it before you build it back up again, they cost more than you build. Okay. So I would think you'd be on £200 a foot here, or £2,000 a square metre, whatever, So I think you're a bit light on that.
And then the other bit is, I know on my cover sheet versus my investment analysis, there was a slight discrepancy of 75 grand on the end value, and that's where.
Was that done on purpose?
No, it wasn't. It was where I've done my investment analysis off the back of my spreadsheet, and then we based it on having 3 of the 5 beds at 825 rather than at 800. And so that's where it's missed their 75 grand difference.
Quite a lot of money for houses that are going to be very close together.
Yeah.
Potentially.
So that's where we've tried to split it up in around about 3.5 metres each from each of them.
Yeah.
To kind of allow for that space. Then you do have detached properties. And if you look at the OS map that's on there, they've actually would end up with quite decent sized gardens on them as well.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And the bungalow, so that's what we're looking at with the bottom property, right? And that is all going to stay as one unit.
That was my idea. So it works out in size as about 127 square metres, where part of the roof has fallen down, so on one end. So the rest of it, you can only use what's existing and standing. So there's 127 square metres. So I thought, rather than try to split this into 2-3 beds, why don't we have this as a really nice 4-bedroom bungalow? And the idea with this one, because it's only got the space out front, but opposite is where I said there's this bullpen. And if we knock that down and then give that as the garden kind of space across from it, that can make it quite nice.
Yeah, people don't like the word bungalow. Younger people don't want to live in a bungalow. People with families don't want to live in a bungalow.
We could call it a piggery or a barn conversion
or
something else a bit more.
Ranch home or something like that.
Pardon?
Sounds
Ranch
American.
home.
American.
Fiona's made a
Single
great
story.
point. Yeah, so what I'm saying is you need to spin it a bit. We had a query, didn't we, Helen, on the uplift?
Yeah, we do. So the numbers, let's look at those. So we think you're under on your build, and obviously that's going to have an impact on the return that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Of more concern than that is the overage clause.
Yeah. So I want to just explain, sorry.
And the 30% of any uplift hasn't been taken out of that, unless I'm...
No, it hasn't. With it, and I put a note at the bottom that literally flagged it, and I said, this is where it needs to have a bit more of a conversation with the owner.
Yes.
I was hoping, and I realised they've already written that in, and they're quite clearly saying they want to have some kind of share of an uplift. But I think it was something where we need to have a conversation once there's an offer in, everything's moving forwards. I had spoken with the agent, and I had 2 conflicting answers with it. From one side of it, around about how much demand there was, they said, we've had lots of interest, and then I then got a call back saying, we haven't had many people see this one. And so I was sitting there and thinking it might come down to when we actually put through the offer through formally and try and say, look, we'll take the whole lot in one foul sweep, and because we're taking it in one go, we wouldn't want the overage clause in it.
I notice you want 2.8 million off me, not $1 million. So that's a bit
ambitious. That's total.
That's a bit ambitious.
It's whether we're
isn't it?
going to end up, if we're financing the remainder of the development cost, then...
Well, when whatever I'm doing, the price is £1 million. It's not 2.8 million.
Okay.
So you're going to have to...
then in that case, you'll change it round, we'll get planning on it, and we'll sell it to someone else.
That is what I liked. That is exactly what I wanted to hear from you, to be honest with you, because this is a 3-4 year project.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it if the profit was very, very substantial. It may be that you want to sell one of them and do the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your money back on one virtually, do the other one. That's much more feasible, I think, than
that might
doing the whole thing.
Work quite well on the larger barns, then put it off on someone else, and then do the smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that would be probably a good idea.
If you were to move through and be the winner of this round of this year's Property Graduate, would you be willing to change your whole Zebra style, Zebra marketing angle? So that wasn't something John was comfortable with.
The shirt and the branding and everything else is used typically for networking in places where you get a bit of exposure. So everyone kind of, if they just want to see Zebra and they hear the name Tristan, you can put the 2 and 2 together quite easily. And that tends to work quite well for the networking side of things. When I've been in, when I've been in professional locations or mingling with other people who are, say, surveyors, that sort of thing, I'm more than happy to don a shirt, put on a blazer.
I'm glad to hear that, because if we have to troop down to London to see some banker, with all due respect, I don't want it looking like that. And I think we've sort of asked all the questions we needed to ask, have we, ladies? We have.
No more grilling?
No more drilling. Congratulations on your appraisal. I thought it was good. Yep. I think all the appraisals are good, actually. Thank you very much, Tristan. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
So we've got Neil Wise coming in next. And of course, Neil is... You all right, Fiona? You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Good. That's all right. We've got Neil Wise coming in there now. I mean, you're so impressed with his pack, I think. You just can't stop reading it, can you?
I think that last round we gave them a simple appraisal sheet, and not any of them have actually given us a summary based on the appraisal sheet from last round. Just a simple summary at the start.
Yeah, would help.
There's a little bit of information by, overload here.
Yeah, there is. But it's impressive. But it should be impressive, to be fair, because he's a very, we're comparing apples with pears, really, because he's obviously a very experienced, property estate agent, property professional, if you like.
And he knows his area as well.
And he knows his areas really well. So, listen, let's not preempt anything. Let's get him in and see what he's got to say.
Yep.
Neil, good to see you again.
Thank you.
You deserve to be in the final. Let's hear what you've got to say about the deal you brought us, please.
Yep. So I think you've seen a short video on just a brief introduction to the location. So it is a town centre location in Royston. It is currently it's a former butcher's yard. It's disused at the moment. It's got planning granted for 5 single-storey dwellings for bungalows, essentially, in a small gated development. Target audience is primarily retired 60 plus, looking to be close to amenities. There's a real lack of bungalows in most towns, but very much so in this town. So there's a big demand, and there's a premium to be had on the price per square foot on them compared with traditional 2-bedroom terrace house. It's a good market in that area. And looking at a small gated, very private development, it's tree lined to the rear. It's got air source heat pumps, solar panels, so very energy efficient as well at the same time. Got a nice courtyard garden to the centre. It's like I say, an exclusive development close to the town that there'll be a very strong demand for.
You're sounding like an estate agent, not a property developer. Which, to be fair, you're looking to have help in transferring to that. I appreciate.
Well, I think they go perfectly
together.
And
be my partner. I love the fact that you call it a secure, a secluded garden. They're all sharing the same damn garden.
It's
come on, Neil.
And there's no parking.
A secluded private development. Okay. The garden is communal. But they are looking for maintenance free.
And they're all looking inwards towards their own other people's windows. To be honest with you,
apart from the Veluxes, so they get a nice sky view
we need to put glass on there that only reflects one way. To be fair, if you can.
Yeah.
So parking.
No parking.
No parking.
So there's no parking. Town centre location. There's a lot of car parks around you can easily get permits for if you want them.
Neil, of course there is. I've heard that old jargon many, many times. I've used it myself on occasions.
We could include them in it. So.
I've heard it all. Right, okay.
So they're not that big at 658 square feet. And I'm just curious, you've got 81,000 for a ground source heating system.
Yeah.
Which I happen to know about ground source heating systems. I'm wondering whether you feel that's a little high or...
So I've, just because of the timescales that we've had, I've just gone with what the planning's been granted on the current plan, so I could do a full assessment of what has been granted and what's been drawn up. But there is areas of further investigation into...
I mean, that's only 16,000 per unit, but so that's interesting though. You've given us a lot of data here.
Yes. So you've given us a whole raft of comparables, and you said that these should attract a premium, and you've actually given us kind of the low, medium, high of that, and we start at kind of 582, and then the max is 643, but some of the comparables are like 865. 775.
So I've gone conservative, even though I believe they'll get the higher end because, again, yes, I've been an estate agent. I've sold some recently that are even smaller with that high. But I know one of John's criticisms is of estate agents overvaluing. So I have deliberately gone low. I do believe we can hit the higher amounts, but I wanted to check at the lower amount that we would still meet that 30% return. But you'll see I've put in some analysis, of my sales performance to show John and both of you that I sell what I put on the market. So my conversion is at 93%, and the time of sale is quick. So back up that I price
Neil,
it realistically.
That's because the type. That's not just because you're obviously good at what you do. but also that is how the market's been in the last 12 months.
If I showed you how it is against every other competitor in the town, it's completely different results because they are overpriced, and it does happen all the time. Big frustration as I know
Not just
to
this
you.
last 12 months.
No, absolutely. It's historical. It's a strategy which I don't believe in.
Totally, I agree entirely with you. Few things I want to just touch on. Contamination, it's been a butcher's yard.
Yeah.
So
that was a very, very long time ago.
Yeah, it might have been, but you'll be amazed. They get very hot on the under the collar regarding butchers and things like that because of blood and this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it. So, has there been a contamination report carried out?
I can't be 100% sure to answer that correctly, but it hasn't been a butcher's yard, I believe, for like 70, 80 years.
Someone with your experience should know that. In the area, what's the cheapest property you can buy in Royston?
Probably a 1-bed flat is around 200,000.
A 2-bed flat?
A 2-bed from 230, 250 and upwards.
And
I've
a terrace
sold them
house?
right up to 300.
And a terrace?
End terrace, 2 beds, 350 minimum.
How much are these going to be?
At the lowest,
average?
375.
You see, my problem with that, Neil, is that you've got terrace houses.
Yep.
I know it's a different market, which are bigger.
Yep.
You know, an average terrace house is 1,000 square feet, probably, isn't it? And you've got 650 square feet here.
Again, it's that audience, and if you look at the market comparables, like Helen said, that some of them are 800 or 700 pound a square foot. These are a lot cheaper than that.
Talk me through the finance, particularly the interest costs.
Yep. So I based it on, there's £1 million investment. So the difference above £1 million at 10% is what I put in there for.
Okay, so just the difference.
Yeah,
okay.
because if there's £1 million investment, I don't need the extra £1 million finance.
You do, Neil, because when we look at any deal, we always put all the money in at 10%.
I've just based on.
I appreciate
I've
that.
based on winning.
So on that basis, how much more is the interest?
So it'd be another 100,000 on top.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it?
100,000 on top. You could be being very clever doing that, Neil, because you're an experienced you're experienced in the property industry, or you could just genuinely think that that was the way it was done.
No, I priced it on winning the show. I've based it on doing a deal with you on this basis. That's why you can see the figures are clearly everything over the million.
The preliminaries, you've got quite a chunky number there, 137k for the preliminaries, and I've been going through the planning permission. That you know, there's a lot of kind of conditions to fill and reports that they need before kind of development can take place. What else is in that preliminaries?
Preliminaries.
There's a full
Prelims
breakdown.
is easy to
Prelims,
say.
there we go.
There's a full breakdown because I had a QSO have a look at the plans because I've not done this before.
No, you've done the right thing.
So I've got to get the right people involved.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of the preliminaries they've set out is in terms of the actual construction with the cabin foreman, plant hire, supervision, scaffolding, craneage. It's all quite detailed.
Prelims drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But you know, if they don't put them down as prelims, they put them in somewhere else. So
for me, this
difference.
absolutely. The one thing is with the site that it is very narrow access at the front.
Right.
But you'll see in one of the packs after the decision notice, there is field behind which is owned by the council, and I included a email from the agent dealing with that in the council. And in principle, they're open to giving access from the rear as well to make it a lot easier.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
At the moment, these preconditions that have to be dealt with prior to the commencement of work on site are proving a real challenge to many developments, and I've been caught up in a couple where it's taken a lot longer than it should do, mainly because it's the local authorities and all the rest of it. One of the things that is a big problem at the moment is surface water. That can't go into the drains normally. It has to go into some sort of pond or. Do you know what in the preconditions they've said on that?
There's a whole page on I think, on drainage
I
for
bet
the
there is,
site,
yeah. It's a
detailed in
challenge, I
there.
thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I hope you see that, so there's a lot of preconditions, and I read them on the demolition approval plans
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Yeah.
I've not done this before. I know
No,
I get
I
comments
appreciate
that
that.
I've been in property 20 years and perhaps I'm, very experienced, but I'm probably one of the only candidates, if not the only, that's not done any development. But I've shown that I can research really quickly, and that's what, I use contacts, use the right people. So if it does take time, to try and make that as quick as
It
possible.
is part of the conditions, as
It
you
will
say,
be.
though.
It will
Rainwater
be. Yeah.
goods shall either be metal or cast iron effect, blah, 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 blah.
But also, where the biggest issue is
Where it goes.
where it goes,
Yeah.
because they don't like it going into the drains.
Sure.
And it's all about flash flooding in the summer and things like that.
Yep.
Now you have to prove that you're not going to flood someone else's home
Right.
and everything else. It's a new planning policy. It's only been out 2 years.
And what contingency have you put in there?
I took the QS report and I then presented that to 2 builders to scrutinise as well. And I've then, the builder's costs, even one's given me a fixed price already, although I want to delve into it a lot more. I've put a 10% contingency in there anyway.
Okay. Well, that every bank will want a 10%
Yeah.
offers if we end up doing it together
Sure.
and you win the competition. Okay. Fiona, anything else that you want to?
Just wondering how many deals you looked at. This is a thorough analysis. So clearly a lot of work's gone into this. How many other options did you have for a deal?
I had probably about 3 that had been presented to me in the last few months, but doing what I do, I know the sales part of it. This was the one that stood out.
So you chose it because it would sell well.
Sell well and good return on it. Yeah, the figures, I know what John's looking for, and I obviously want to make as much profit as possible as well. And yes, I've done a lot of work, but I started that when I first got into this process.
I'd like to know why you want to win.
Whatever I do, I want to be the best at. I don't just want to buy a property, decorate it and sell it again. I want to learn. It's just about self-improvement. And if I'm going to learn, I want to be the best I can be. So I want to learn from people that have been successful.
Look, Neil, thank you very much. I'm going to have a think about it and discuss things with Fiona and Helen, and then everyone, all 3 of you, will be back in here and we'll decide who becomes the property graduate for 2022. So thank you for
Thanks
the
for your
moment.
time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've seen all 3 now. They've come in, they've brought their deals in. Shall we just talk about the deals first? Because I think that's quite an important part
Yeah.
of the process, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Emma, what do we think of Emma's deal? And what do you think, Fiona?
I didn't love it.
No,
I don't think I even liked it,
no.
not particularly.
I think what I would say is you and I have both bought pubs over the years and developed them and so on. And I didn't think, well, it was too much money for a start. She got the build cost wrong. And, it needs to be substantially cheaper. The land at the back is just a bit of a red herring, do you think?
It was speculative,
Yeah,
and you don't want to be doing deals that are
no.
speculative, really.
I mean, you can't put any value, an acre of land with no planning in Greenbelt's probably worth 10,000. Okay, so I'm a little bit disappointed with Emma with what she came up with. And the argument that she only had 3 days to do so, I don't buy that. Do you,
No.
Helen?
No, they've known from round 1 if they.
Or before.
When they applied.
when
yeah.
We
they
specifically told them in round 1, start looking for a deal.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but she's young and she's ambitious, and I like that. And I think she's fairly ruthless, and I quite like that as well. I quite like that.
You would.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, well, there you go.
She's go-getter.
And then we've got Tristan, of course, from Norfolk, from Norwich. Still don't like his shirt.
Zebra boy.
Zebra Boy. What do we think of Zebra Boy?
I think he bought an interesting deal. I think the overage is a bit of a make or break. So he needs to quickly ascertain whether that can be negotiated out, possibly with a little bit extra on the purchase price. That was an interesting option that he presented. His pack wasn't laid out particularly well, but perhaps he hasn't done it that often.
No, and by his own admission, he was saying, wasn't he, Helen, that he's not used to looking at deals like this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't expect them to be honest with you. Where there's £1 million funding available, and if they've been battling away on their own and in spending £200,000-300,000 on deals, then that's fair enough. You don't expect them to have that in their locker at this point.
No, but he'd come up. I think he has great attention to detail, and that's certainly something I always look for.
He had looked at quite a lot of angles to the actual project.
He had. I don't think he quite grasped the fact that it will cost more than a new build, because barns are notoriously difficult to convert.
No.
Builders don't like doing them. They don't like giving a fixed price on them. There's a lot of challenges, and under the planning permission, the PD, the agricultural PD permission, as I call it, they have to look like farm buildings.
Yeah.
Modern farm buildings.
But when you made the suggestion of let's get the plan and turn it, he's like, he had the flexibility to go, actually, that's a... Yeah,
he did, I agree. It didn't faze him.
No.
And likable.
Yeah.
I think with
Tristan,
where he's weaker is actually where your strength and guidance would actually help him. That's my feeling.
Okay. And he's very likable.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay, and then
just in a different shirt.
Just in a different shirt. Absolutely. Well said, Helen.
Can we make it a condition?
Does he go on dates with that shirt? That's what I want to know. I don't know. Perhaps he's married. I don't know. Anyway, and then we have Neil. Neil, the very experienced estate agent. And I think, to be fair to the other two candidates, we can't look at them in the same way as we can Neil. I think we've got to be tougher on Neil.
Yeah.
Because he's got 20 years experience, So what do we think?
And a whole team around him.
I mean, the pack he put together was phenomenal.
Yes.
But to be fair to him, he's picked up the phone like I would to a few people probably and done, can you do this for me? And they've done it. So
he did make an error on the finance.
Yes.
Yeah.
As Helen discovered.
I think he tried to catch us out there, and we didn't. Unfortunately, he didn't catch us out. So Neil, you didn't catch us out. We spotted that straight away, that he only had interest, bank interest over the £1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you now, every deal we do, we put, if it's our money or the bank's money, we put it all in at 10%.
Exactly. But he had done that in round 2, so I don't know why he didn't.
I think he's just trying to be clever, don't you?
Also, you said he's the most experienced, but this show isn't about the most experienced.
No, it's not.
We say it's open to everybody.
And it is genuinely open to everyone.
So, that doesn't give you an automatic win just because you're the most experienced.
Sometimes you don't want an answer to everything. You want somebody to say, I don't know.
No, I think we had a few estate agent answers there. We've all heard it before. We're all super experienced up. We've all heard it before. And you just think, well, Neil, you've answered it, but you don't. Do you really mean it?
Yeah.
Do you really know?
Or was that the quick answer?
Or was that the quick, easy answer out of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I still don't know who I should pick. Fiona, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who do you think?
I think it's between Tristan and Neil. And I'm swinging between the two. But I think I would probably pick Tristan.
Helen, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I'm with Fiona on this. It's between Tristan and Neil for me as well. And they're very different propositions. So I don't even think it's about kind of the deal. It's about who you think you can kind of work with on an ongoing basis.
I think you're being a bit harsh to Emma there, both of you.
Right.
For me, she's a go-getter. She is a go-getter.
Well, you did say you liked Ruthless.
And I like Ruthless. And estate agents aren't particularly ruthless. They're nice people because they please everybody all the time to make sure they get the deal done. What do we think, Helen?
Tristan.
Very interesting. Well, look, I'm not sure I agree with you both. I'm brave enough to say that.
Yeah.
But let me have a final think about it.
You didn't agree with us last year,
Did we?
So.
I would say any of the three would actually be.
They
credible.
would.
That's a bit of a cop-out, Fiona, isn't it?
No,
They
they've
bring
got
something
different.
They all bring something different, I agree with you. And I'm not sure. I'm going to have a cup of tea and then sit quietly and make a final decision. But can I thank you so much, as always. Helen, I love working with you. You're straight down the line. The information you give people is absolutely spot on. And Fiona, we need to do some deals together. And we don't seem to meet each other enough. And thank you so much for working on the show with me. Your advice has been, fantastic. So thank you both so much. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
So the big moment. I've made my decision. I've had my cup of tea. Let's get them in.
Okay.
Let's get them in. Welcome back, the three of you. It's been a long few weeks, and I know you've all worked very hard, especially coming up with the deal. We've also been working hard last few weeks, haven't we? It hasn't been easy for us either. But I've made my decision. Emma, I felt that you had a very good first round. I think the second round was disappointing. I gave you a chance in the final, but I'm afraid it isn't your day. So if you could leave the room, please, I'd be very grateful. Thank you. And thank you very much for applying for the show and so on. Well done for getting in the top 3. Gentlemen, 3 becomes 2. 2 will become 1. I've got a difficult decision. Do I go for someone with 20 years experience in the property industry? And most people perhaps watching this will think it's an easy decision in that respect. Or do I go for the younger, just as hungry, less experienced Tristan with the most dreadful shirt you could possibly ever have? Now, it's very, very difficult for me, but I have made a decision. My decision, and the person who will be the property graduate 2022 is Tristan. Well done. Well done.
John, you've got your new property graduate 2022. How are you feeling right now? Is he the right man for the job?
I hope so. I hope we made the right decision. I'm sure we have. And Tristan, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And this is for you to go on your office mantelpiece or whatever. Very well deserved. Tough competition, but we've got faith in you, and I think we'll work very well together over the next 12 months. So well done.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
John, what was it about Tristan that shone?
Well, it certainly wasn't his shirt.
No, I might agree
I
with
think a
that.
bit of a hang up there. We're going to have a difference of opinion.
I've
but
got a solution. I'll buy you a cheetah shirt.
yeah, he's going to
Then you
buy
can
me
know
a
that we're in
cheetah
the-
shirt.
we're
That
in the
looked
pack.
really good. I felt that he had a certain amount of experience. I mean, he's done very well in some of the deals he's already got on the go himself, and I think that he's got the energy and that passion to do better and to do bigger deals. And I think I can certainly help him do that. And I think that, and he's very likable young man, and I think that goes a long way as well.
So you reckon you can both work well together? Because that's a huge thing over the next 12
It
months.
is. You better ask him. I can work with him, but he's got to.
I think so. I imagine there's going to be a little bit of banter, a bit of fun along the way.
They will
so
be, yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
I'll get on the treat.
Yeah, and I think business should be fun, and there's nothing wrong with having some banter, some fun with people along the way. I like to do business with a smile on my face, and even when things go wrong, inevitably now and again they do go wrong. It's how you deal with those problems that's really important, and I think Tristan's got a level head on him, and I think when things get tough, I think he'll pull through.
Well, both of you enjoy the ride.
We will. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Do you think you have what it takes to be John's next property graduate? Applications for Property Graduate 2023 are now open, and you can apply at propertygraduate.tv. We'll see you then.